Hello, everyone. I'm Dennis Flower, former editor of leading industry publications and now working with SFG20 to support its 2024 virtual summit on 20th of November. This is designed to provide a wide range of advice on the highly important topic of future-proofing buildings. I'm joined today by people from the highly regarded Q3 services, their clients Maximus and CAFM provider Facilio. And I'd like to invite everyone now to take the opportunity to introduce themselves, starting with Mark Hazelwood. Mark, over to you.
Hi, Mark Hazelwood. I'm Managing Director of the Integrated FM and Technical Services Division of Q3. As you can tell from the grey hair, I've been in FM for forever, in various roles, both in big FM and smaller organisations, client and supplier side. And also probably why I'm here today, I'm a self-confessed data geek and really interested in how we can use data in FM.
Thank you, Mark. Richard, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, Dennis. Hello, everyone. Richard Piggin. I'm the Facilities Management Director here at Maximus. Maximus are a global leader in health and employment services. People have probably never heard of us. We have about 270 sites and locations around the UK. And probably about 2.5 years ago, we partnered with Q3 as part of our integrated facilities management provider. And things are going strong. And we use Facilio. And it's great to talk about lots of the data-driven decisions that we use, that we pull out of Facilio to make the right decisions, shall we say.
Fantastic. Thank you, Richard. And last but definitely not least, Rupal.
Hello, hi Dennis and everyone. I'm Rupal Gokani. I had product innovation here at Facilio. I'm happy to be here. As Richard mentioned, it's been a great experience working with Q3 and Maximus and really help them go through this journey of digital maintenance and data. So that's my role today, to talk about how Facilio is helping them in the growth sector there. And from a product perspective, I have a decade of experience working in this industry, building all the SaaS products and actually working with customers to understand their challenges and then convert that into innovative products. So glad to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rupal, and welcome everyone. So if everyone's happy, I'll ask the first question. What is digital-led maintenance?
Shall I come in there? For me, I'd actually flip the question a bit. I think it's more to do with data-led maintenance, and I think for me it's all about using data as a basis for service, and I think probably moving things from a reactive perspective to a more proactive. So getting rid of those nasty surprises on failed assets, being able to go back to a client, and rather than saying, whoops, that's just broken, we need to spend some money to replace it, being able to be a bit more predictive about that and long-term with our customers.
Good point, Mark. I think, sorry, Dennis, I think I'll just add on to that, Mark. So the data that is now visible to us, that certainly wasn't prior to the Q3 Facilio relationship, has really been transformational in terms of how we deliver and manage the spaces where we operate from. So prior to having this, we were relying on spreadsheets, very paper-driven, kind of not particularly reliable data sets. And now we can go into Facilio, we can interrogate data at a site level or all the way down to an asset level and make those decisions on, do we invest? Do we do something differently? Do we retain that building or whatever the need from that decision needs to be made? So a lot of information at our fingertips. So having that digital maintenance information is absolutely fantastic for us. And sorry, just to add on the bit around compliance. And compliance is absolutely vital, and certainly the business sector that we're in. We deal with a lot of people with mobility needs. So to have access to make sure that everything is where it should be, we're not exposing ourselves to any risk. And to have that at your fingertips, it has brought a real confidence in the way that we're delivering the service, or that I'm delivering the service for my customers, working with Mark and the team at Facilio.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, guys. That's a great start. Well, if I think that leads us in nicely into the second question. How does a CAFM platform enable digital-led maintenance?
Maybe I can just add on some points. Maybe Mark and Richard can talk about it. So from a Facilio perspective, what we have seen with our customer base is it's just not about platform for digitization. It's beyond that, right? It's more about automation, you being able to take informed decision, as Richard rightly mentioned in his previous point about taking informed decisions, right? And how can that happen is we have to look beyond digitization, right? It's often looked at as a platform for digitization alone, but what we offer here is also automation, where you talk about how you can eradicate all the manual tasks, how you can look at the history and the data and really take decisions on repair versus replace, right? These are budgeting decisions you can take, and that's in turn going to help your business. So that's more of what we think is the path towards digital maintenance, and that's what we've seen from our customer base as well. So yeah.
I think on the CAFM side of things, it's that there's almost too much data out there at the moment, and the opportunity to capture and to the point it makes your head hurt. And what do we do with that data? So I think where the CAFM is fundamental is actually making sense of all of that stuff and presenting it back in a way where you can act upon it. And I think it's around alerting, integration with third-party tools like IoT, SFG20 for structures, for doing unplanned maintenance. We've done some work with how we accredit our supply chain integrated into FM, into our CAFM, and having the right system and the ability to do all of that just starts to make sense of this whole big bucket of data, which is brilliant, but unless you're doing something with it, what's the point? I won't claim this as my own, but a colleague said a while ago, it's about you can be data rich but insight poor. And I think for me, a key of what a CAFM should do is turn data into insight, and that insight into action, if that makes sense.
Mark, it makes perfect sense. And I certainly think from the client side of things, I'm responsible for presenting that data to clearly non-property and non-technical people, for either them to make decisions or to know that their spaces and the environments that we're working on are safe and compliant, as we've already mentioned. So to be able to have the ability to interpret what is particularly, or at times, complex data, whether it be temperature, outputs, or whether it be the performance of a certain bit of equipment, to present that in such a way that someone can be easily told what the output is and what the route going forward needs to be, is absolutely vital. And any CAFM system, but certainly that we've experienced with Facilio, allows us to do that. And taking those, what is complex information, presenting in a simple format, and I'm presenting it at our UK board. So this isn't low level stuff. And as we all know, when you're talking to certain levels within an individual, they don't need to get into the detail. At least you want to know everything's safe, everything's compliant, and we've got a handle of this. And again, we've got the full support with the system, and the CAFM system allows us to do that. That's
fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. I have to say at this point, I'm loving the feedback from everyone. It's fantastic to hear the capability from Rupal's perspective, how it's being applied by from Mark's perspective, and also then from Richard, how it can then be used for all the practical purposes of actually justifying everything that's being done. Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you, guys. Let's move on to the third question, if that's okay. What are the key foundations in a digital-led maintenance strategy?
I mean, if I might start, Dennis, I mean, for me, it's having confidence in that data. As I mentioned, paper systems in the past and having lots of information in different areas. So one, having the foundation of the SFG20 in there gives us that stability. We know when we're doing things consistently, which is absolutely great. I can challenge Mark for saying why we're doing this, and Mark's got a foundation. This is why we're doing it, but it's all held together. It's all in the same space. So I'm not going to one of the 270 sites to try and find information. It's there at our fingertips. So I think the foundation for me is having proper, accurate data that's accessible, that I can then have confidence to present and hand on heart say, yes, we are compliant. Yes, we are doing what we should do. We are following best practice. And it's not someone's idea of what we think is a good idea, whether that's be too much or too less maintenance, whether it be from a cost or a supplier's benefit. Oh yeah, you need to do it every week because they're making a bit of money, or you need to do it every year because the finance guy says we only need to do it because we don't visit that site. We're using a standard format to consistently deliver a service. So that's that from my side. That's what I have to say on that.
No, I absolutely agree, Rich. It's that whole foundation in data. Not sometimes a particularly sexy thing to talk to a client about. We need to put all this investment in getting the data correct. And Richard and Maximus have been very good with that and understanding that the old corny thing in IT, garbage in, garbage out, is very true. And actually, any strategy with the wrong foundations of data isn't going to work. So that's investment, and I think it's also making that cultural change in an organisation so everything happens within your chosen CAFM or system. If we're being honest, a lot of our comfort zones are around using the old Microsoft Excel to do any business process known to man or woman. So it's just trying to get out of that, and actually, if you're going to invest in a digital journey and a data journey, making sure that the data's in the system where you need it, and politely taking people on the journey of moving from Excel to a proper system to manage data.
So we're about halfway through the interview now. I'm hoping it's continuing in the high quality that it started out. Thank you again to everybody for all their wonderful input. Can you describe the essentials for creating a successful integrated FM services approach?
So I'll jump in there, Dennis, if that's okay, if you don't mind. So for us, it was very much around having a partner that understood not only how our business operates, but the diverse nature of the locations, whether it be from a small little 5-person office to one of the large corporate spaces that we've got around the UK. So having a successful integrated FM services approach was 100% about having the ability to align with our values and to bring technology to allow us to have the full end-to-end visibility of not only a system of people reporting faults and issues, but also the ongoing maintenance, whether it be from the PPM and future delivery of all of these services. And through a tender process, Q3 was successful. And we see out there in the marketplace, there's an array of CAFM systems, and we did see quite a few as part of our process. But what really impressed me about the Facilio system was that it was really easy to use. It was really dead easy to pick up from the end user's point of view, and it was really adaptable. So we've done some tweaks, or we've requested some tweaks within that system as we've been using it, and Facilio have been really reactive. So it isn't one size fits all. It's adapting to what our individual needs have been. And again, part of the key of selecting that was an ability. It wasn't, this is the system, take it or leave it. It was, well, what do you want? And using the framework with the Facilio system and Q3's expertise in terms of where they deliver all those services has allowed that to work really well for us. And it continues to go from strength to strength.
No, I think that's really good, Richard. I think the key thing for me, you said there, and it's good to hear, it's about making sure we tailor what we do to the needs of Maximus, to the needs of our client. So it's not coming in and saying, well, this is the Q3 formula for delivering IFM, regardless of what you do, client. We are going to tailor something to your requirement, to the business drivers of Maximus, to the business need, to your processes of your support services. So we don't end up with two sets of processes. We're truly an integrated service with both businesses, and we've done a lot of work with that. I think by having Facilio as a more modern CAFM, we've been able to do a lot of business process mapping. So a simple thing like controlling cost. So Richard gave us the authorization levels in Maximus, and we've automated all that. We can go, it gets to this level, go and ask for authorization. It's an incident in this particular location, alert to these people. So it's very much making sure that what we do fits the requirement of our client, rather than saying, sorry, this is the way we deliver FM, this is what you're having. And I think that's been compelling for a lot of customers, and actually helps with that whole partnership approach. And I think it's also interesting when you come to the data side of things on an integrated FM relationship. And I can imagine with Richard in the early days, it's when you start to present data to people and you give them lots of data, unfortunately they look at it, and some of the stories that they see from that data they will like, and some of the stories they see from that data they might not like as much. So it's about managing that expectation. Look, we're putting all this good stuff in front of you. It might tell you some pictures you don't like, but we've got all of these control mechanisms to deal with them. So it's just making sure you take all the stakeholders on your journey.
Mark, you mentioned briefly there about the approval levels. And again, from a finance point of view, clearly running any business as efficiently as best as you can is important. But setting those systems up and having the audit and traceability of who's approved what, where, and what levels is also really important for us. So our commissioners, some of our customers, they're very dictating, if that's the right word, on the information that they would like to see, which is fine. That's their prerogative, and I can't disagree with that. So to have the ability to get that information at our fingertips with the true kind of details behind the scenes that says this is who's approved it, this is the approval level, and it aligns with our governance is great, and something we didn't have before. So it was really difficult. Now it's really straightforward. But yes, Mark, we can share lots of data. We generally do with lots of people, and they go, yeah, that's lovely. So what? Oh, you're worse than what we thought. So again, it drives and sets the strategy. We've had that certainly early days with the compliance, didn't we? We were focused on in some areas which we thought we were fine on. Looking at the data, having the systems in place, realised that we weren't as good as we thought we were, and there were some areas that we hadn't got at all right. And again, using the data-led solution put us in a better position. And hand on heart, I know that we're not going to prison tomorrow because we haven't done something we should do, and we can demonstrate that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So can we move on to our next question, and which is, how does the relationship between FM service provider, software provider, and client work in creating the mechanism for digital-led maintenance?
Yeah, let me add a couple of things here, because what we see ourselves more than like a service provider, we see ourselves like a growth enabler, right? If I put it that way. So it's a very tricky situation that, let's say, for example, Q3 have a lot of clients, everybody have their own processes. And I think Richard mentioned this as well in his point about we can't be rigid and we can say, okay, I'm going to give you a software, you deploy it across your client and you figure that out. That's not going to work. It's a three-way street here, right? Where we have to make sure we are adhering to the processes each of Q3's clients have. And in this case, with Maximus, that's exactly what we were able to do, where we understood what really their requirement is, not overwhelming them as well, making sure that we have a product, but we are actually fitting only their processes within it. And that's how exactly it would work, right? So Q3 would be able to give us all their different diverse clients, what their requirements in, and our software can actually fit in for all of those requirements, rather than just giving them an overwhelming product and asking them to figure it out, right? So that's the key element when you have relationship between a service provider, a software provider, and a client working together. And that's the major success I would look at. And more than that, our strengths is really on customizing these, right? When I said we tailor it to their client needs, it's also about customizing. It's more than what we have in the product. If we have to customize a bit more, because it's a very niche market, we have to make sure that we still adapt to the old principles and we still have a software in place. We may have to do some customization and not just throw tech in this industry. In that angle, if you look at it, it's very important that the software is not very rigid. So that's where I see us as a growth enabler, so that tomorrow, let's say Q3 wants to deploy this to other few clients, it's an easy plug and play rather than going through the process again. So yeah.
I think for me, there's a couple of key bits. I think there's confidence, so it's deploying the important things early. So actually, I've been long enough in the industry where you've seen actually the CAFM not up and running to year 2, year 3 of a relationship. That doesn't cut it if you're a data-led maintenance organization. It's got to be in from day one, and it's about looking at risk. So we might say, well, reactive maintenance is our biggest risk, so we're going to get that deployed. We might then say, statutory compliance, so we'll do that. We're just being very structured and guaranteeing to the client you are going to put in these things at that date and meeting it. Because I think there's a lot of cynicism around software. I think rightly so. I think back in the day, I used to get lots of software providers ring me and I'd say, that's fine, I'll meet you next week, I want a demo. And a good 80% of them I'd never hear from again, because it was a concept, they couldn't deliver what they were saying. And so I think that's rightly so created this cynicism. And I think the other thing that people have done is when they see software is that they see a shiny thing and they focus on that shiny thing and not their business requirement. So we do a lot of work with, forget the software, what are we trying to achieve? And I've bored Richard constantly with process flows. And we always start with that. We start with the requirement, not the software. And we map to the requirement. And I think why that's really important is then the thing that the client, Maximus, think they're getting at the end and Q3 think they're getting is the thing that's delivered. And you see a lot in software development is there's a meeting held, everybody's really happy, we're going to get this brilliant bit new functionality. Software provider goes radio silent for 6 months, come back and say, oh, look at this brilliant thing we've done. And you say, oh, that isn't what we thought we were getting. So it's about that dialogue and absolutely starting with firm business requirements and making sure they're delivered and the outcomes that were in that requirement.
Yeah, you're right, Mark. And again, I think you helped us define some of those requirements. So again, the true partnership approach where we said, well, we think we want this. And you were going, well, actually, it would be much more sensible to follow this particular process, and it would address these concerns. So I think, again, the true partnership approach works really well. I think the other point when we talk about digital maintenance, there's a confidence factor. So, the world's moved on, everything's digital these days. And we are a very risk-averse organisation. We're an American firm, and we've got lots of controls. And certainly some of the clients that we work with and some of the data that we have to handle is incredibly sensitive. So anything that revolves around digital systems that's held somewhere in the cloud, we've got a whole team of people that are very nervous to make sure that none of our data is going where it shouldn't be and people can see things that they shouldn't do. And again, as part of the process, as both onboarding, the Q3 and Facilio systems, that was a vital tick to get us through that stage gate that says, yes, your systems are secure. We know where it's hosted. No one's going to see anything and break into it. And again, it might be a relatively small thing, but it was a big milestone for us to ensure. And Mark and you and the Facilio team jumped through loads of hoops to make sure that all those things were correct, and dealt with our US kind of ISO team to make sure that was all correct. But yeah, it's just a point that I just wanted to highlight that I think is sometimes forgotten about. That, yeah, like you said, Mark, there's loads of CAFM systems out there, but do they all do the basics and kind of the minimum criteria that different people need or different suppliers want?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. You're giving so many wonderful insights now. So penultimate question as well. So can I ask, is it possible to have a single approach to digital-led maintenance?
Can I give a one-word answer? No. And I might expand. It's probably more useful. Things are just moving at such a pace. So, and I think you've got, by the time you'd created that single solution, it would be irrelevant or outdated. So I think it's about having the foundations to say, right, I'm not going to have an application that does everything I need it to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have something that's where I can hold my base data credibly and I can integrate securely and easily with other stuff. And that stuff might be IoT solutions or third-party applications like SFG20 that exist today, but you've also got to consider what might exist in the near future. So I think it's about having those base foundations to almost second guess where things are going. And probably if you'd asked me a decade ago, I would have said something different. I would have talked about this all singing, all dancing application that did the right things for building occupants, Richard as my client, everybody that delivered every part of the service within the FM organization. But I don't think that's how we interact with technology. And I think what you end up with is a whole navigation through a load of faff to get to the thing you want to get to, or the piece of data you want pushed to you. And if you look at typically how you interact with your smartphone, you might have hundreds of apps sitting on that phone, and you're quite comfortable to do that because the app you use to book a taxi, for instance, is very good at booking you a taxi, and you don't have to go through a load of other stuff to get to the thing you want to do in the next 30 seconds. And I think there's a bit of a lesson for technology within FM when it comes to that. That's not try and be the panacea to every problem in one application. That's do the thing that the relevant stakeholder wants at that point really well, really easily in the timescale they need it, rather than making them navigate through a whole sea of irrelevant information.
It's interesting, Mark, the way you describe that analogy of being the mobile phone, the apps. I really like that. But I think the mobile phone is probably the CAFM system in some cases. That's the glue that holds it all together. And maybe the apps, the different activities that feed into it. So as you said, you've recently installed some technology for us that does some sensor. We've got the CO2 monitoring, air quality, temperatures, and everything else within some spaces where we've got some particular concerns around the environmental conditions. And again, it's not the one size fits all. So it's not a Facilio product, but the outputs from there can feed into Facilio. It can then lead into what the next step is, all through automation. The engineer can turn on, correct the problem. This isn't new stuff. This has been around. It's new for us, but it's not cutting edge, certainly. But again, to have that kind of integration with different inputs. But as far as I'm concerned, I've still got the single platform that it all comes through. I mean, even something as simple as meter reads. We're really keen in terms of reducing our carbon footprint, and we've got our sustainability target 2030 to be carbon positive. So there's lots of activity we're doing in that space to help reduce that. And one of those is how well your building's being monitored, what's the temperature, and what's your meter readings, what's your energy usage. And again, with the Q3 teams having the input into there, putting it into Facilio, our sustainability team can draw into that. So again, using lots of inputs. But so yes, it's not one size fits all, as we already said before, and there isn't one single approach for digital led maintenance, but there is some glue that holds it together, and that might, in this case, I would see that as being the phone or the CAFM system.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. So we're on to the final question. How does technology support FM business growth?
I suppose that's probably what I should start with. To me, it's around simplicity. So how quickly can we deploy this thing? Is it a repeatable model? Going back to the previous question, can I expand on that as things change with technology in the marketplace and my client need? And key, especially in any new relationship, it's about being able to deploy very quickly to create confidence. Because if you're a client and you've procured through to Q3 or another FM provider, there's a bit of a leap of faith there. And in sales mode, any FM provider out there will tell you lots of really good stuff about what they're going to do. We all love technology in the FM industry because it means we haven't got to talk about spanners or mops and buckets and all of that kind of stuff. I have a bit of a view on that we should be more proud of the core things we do, but FM companies don't like talking about that kind of stuff. Let's talk about sexy technology. And I think there's been a swing in the last decade that perhaps a lot of that thing that was in the last section of a bid under innovation, if we're being honest, not all of it was delivered back in the day. And then clients like Richard, unfortunately, started to read the documents that were submitted through the sales process and said, that thing you were going to put in, can you? Because you committed to it in the tender. So it's about moving that from innovation to actually it's part of your culture. It's how you do things around here. And you're absolutely making sure it's embedded quickly and it delivers the business outcomes you said it would. So you can start to sell that whole thing we talked about of moving from reactive to proactive, starting to use data. But actually, if you're not delivering that data for the first 18 months of a relationship, it doesn't really work. So for me, it's about, is it simple enough to get it in quickly? Can we adapt it as well? It's very uncommon, and I think Richard would agree, it's the same with Maximus. We do things slightly different from our document, and we've had conversations from our tender. We've had conversations in the relation to say, okay, it's fine. We said that doesn't quite work for the reality of what we're doing. We're going to adapt because we want to do the right thing by this relationship. So it's making sure your software can do all of that very quickly. And I'd also say, if you're going to fail fast. So so if this thing isn't going to work, yeah, brilliant. We thought that was a marvelous idea, the idea of the week. It didn't work. Move on, do the next thing. But that needs to be able to be done very quickly.
Yeah, so I was just echoing to what Mark just said. Like what we have heard from our customers really is after they deploy CAFM, it's the right solution or tech helps them win new businesses as well, and it gives them a competitive edge. It's more than that. Even for their existing customers, they feel they retain them by elevating the service quality. That's mainly because, as Mark iterated, right? It's how faster you can deploy and show value is where tech can stay apart. And then more when you have new clients coming in, it reduces the time to value, right? That means I can onboard them quickly because the first set of clients, when I onboarded, I did that processes, I went through the entire process. But now when I have the new clients coming in, I just have to plug and play and just have them onboarded. That means they find value faster. So that's what we have really heard from our customers, and I think maybe Maximus and Q3 can talk about the same, where you will actually see visibility across all your clients' portfolio in a single system, right? And that's a single source of truth for you. It's data is not everywhere. You have integrated solutions there. You have, even in this case, let's say you integrate with SFG, you have compliance also in one place. So it's nothing is scattered. Everything is in one place. So that helps you actually grow from a winning new business perspective. And as I mentioned earlier, since it's highly customizable, tech can actually glue to whatever new processes you bring in and whatever businesses you chain. You can add new service lines, you can onboard new customers, talk about KPIs, reporting, everything. The tech can bring all of that in one place. So that's where I feel tech can actually differentiate when it comes to an FM business growth.
And if I took the business growth slightly away from the whole FM piece, I mean, people, property, technology, they're probably the top 3 or certainly the top 5 spending most organisations. And we're certainly no different in that space. So when we're looking to expand our business, and the next 2 years, certainly within Maximus, we're talking about billions of pounds worth of potential opportunities for clients that we're looking to grow. And we've got some real key challenges over the next 12 months for some of those wins. And that the way that the property world has evolved, it isn't just a box on a high street or a box in a business centre that we put people in and clean it and maintain it and look after it. The world's moved on. So there's all sorts of different solutions on for us to be competitive and win new business and obviously grow and hit our targets that we're set in terms of making our business or continuing to make our business efficient and effective. So it's how do we work with our partners to make sure that happens, and being fleet of foot, reacting quickly to those demands and coming back with solutions is absolutely vital. But also having the scalability. So it's fine saying, yeah, we can do that, but as soon as you hit over 300 properties, forget it. We need something else. We need to reinvent the wheel. Or conversely, we've dropped down. We don't need all these properties. We've gone down to half a dozen, and we've still got the right solution. It still works. It has to work both ways, and both of those activities support our business growth. So if I can demonstrate that we're being efficient, we're doing the right thing at the right time, we're not over or we're not under. We're just doing it just right. We're kind of on that very fine balance to make sure that we can demonstrate. And I can support, certainly when I'm talking to our financial teams, that why we're doing this. What do we have to do this maintenance for? What's this F-gas thing? Forget what was. And we do, and we regularly get those challenges. And I need to go very robustly. This is why we're doing it. I'm keeping everyone out of prison, or we're making sure that our customers and colleagues in our spaces are in a safe environment. I can't really stress that enough. And the other part, and I briefly touched on it earlier on with regard to the sustainability agenda, a lot of the bids that we go for, more and more of the scoring and marking criteria is around sustainability and social value. I think it's, at the moment it's around 10%, and that's only going to increase. So the whole scoring mechanism, whether we get to the next phase, is growing, and to be able to use the data from the system and how we operate from a sustainability point of view with the systems we've got is absolutely vital in there. Not having access to that puts us, it was mentioned earlier on, puts us as a disadvantage. So yeah, lots of exciting things ahead, and again, the relationship between the three of us just continues to build to get us to the point where we can do this and we can move forward.
I just sort of want to add sort of one other thing about if this technology is going to truly support your business growth. I think my one bit of advice would be take control, and absolutely it's a relationship where you have honest and robust conversations. And I think my analogy would be if you went and ordered a car and you went to pick it up and there was a van sitting in the forecourt, you wouldn't just get in it and drive away and say, oh, that isn't quite what I thought I was getting. That happens a lot in technology. So I think it's about going back to what we said before, robust business requirements, but having a very open relationship with the software provider that's around business outcomes, business requirements, and being strong enough to say, no, that doesn't meet the requirement, because what you'll get if you don't fully deliver what's required is we'll go back to Excel again. And that's what happens with so many technology deployments. The guys go, right, fine, I'm going to put up with this thing that doesn't quite work. I'll continue to use my spreadsheet. So it's about making sure that what you're doing is truly fit for purpose.
And the confidence factor there, Mark. So having the confidence in that data, so I don't need to use the Excel spreadsheet to go back and check. and we've seen that, haven't we, where we've certainly had individuals have gone, yeah, I know what you're saying, and I kind of believe it, but I'm still going to keep my own little system in the background just to make sure that what you've said, that's now disappeared, thankfully. But you do see some of that.
That's wonderful, guys. I just wanted to say thank you so much for all your honesty, for all your expertise, sharing all this wonderful stuff, all the information with us today. Fantastic. This is by far the best result we've had so far, and we've had some pretty expensive, pretty impressive results. So thank you, guys. So all that remains for me to say is Rupal, Richard, and Mark, thank you very much.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.